Hey guys, so today we're going to continue with more rhythmic elements in 2/4 meter, and then we're going to continue with our melodic solfege exercises. So today we're going to cover the eighth note rest, which is like a little circle with a little tail and then a line going down. It happens on the beats, so when I'm conducting, okay, the moment that I make the beat happen, I have a silence for the rest, and then on the up part of that beat, I have my eighth note, which I say T for, remember. So T, 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 T. Okay, so that's the new rhythmic element. It's an eighth rest plus an eighth note. Let's go ahead and look at an example. Example 1G. I've got here some eighth note rests. So as per the usual method, before I sight read this, I'm going to look at the tempo. I see, okay, it's 100. Then I see here, okay, I've got to pick up eighth note. So again, it's almost like there's a rest. And in fact, if we go to the other end of this exercise, we see that we've got a quarter note and a eighth rest. So this eighth rest is actually what should be over here. Okay, it's just not there right now. So we're leading into this. We're going to conduct the 2 beat and then as a rest and then say T. This measure here, I've got 2 eighth notes and then 2 more eighth notes. Here I've got a quarter note and 2 eighth notes. Next measure, quarter note, eighth rest, eighth note. And again, remember, when we have pickups, the phrases typically tend to also begin with pickups. So here we're going to keep going. We pick up into this measure, 2 eighth notes, quarter note. Next measure, quarter note, 2 eighth notes. Next measure, quarter note, eighth rest, and then we've got our next pickup eighth note. Here we go, next phrase, quarter note, 2 eighth notes. Next measure, 2 eighth notes, 2 more eighth notes. Quarter note, 2 eighth notes, quarter rest. Eighth rest, eighth note pickup. Here we have 2 eighth notes, 2 eighth notes, 2 eighth notes, 2 eighth notes, quarter note, and then the eighth rest that is left off at the end of this measure. All right, let's give this one a try. All right, so looking at this example, again, the conducting is going to be okay, looking at this example, the conducting is going to be, I do my 2, and then when I get my hand up like this, I'm going to say T. So T. So this is like technically my eighth note. T, 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 ta, etc. Okay? So it's at 100, so let's do the sight reading. We've prepared ourselves already. We've analyzed all the elements, and now we're going to get to our tempo. That's 100. Like that. Okay? Here we go. T, 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 ta, T, T, ta. T, 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 ta, ta, T, T, ta. T, ta, T, 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 ta, T, T. T, 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 ta. All right. I got it. Perfect. Now let's see. There might be a spot here, like let's say in this second phrase, which is measure, not counting the pickup measure 1, 2, 3, 4. So including the pickup to measure 4. I've got a pickup and then 2 eighth notes, a quarter note, and then I got the reverse of that in the next measure, a quarter note and 2 eighth notes. And then I have a quarter note at the end of there. So I might use that as a drill. Let's say I messed up there in my sight read. I'll go back to that and I'll work on it and I'll say T, 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 ta, ta, T, T, ta. And now just do that on a loop. T, 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 ta, ta, T, T, ta. T, 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 ta, ta, T, T, ta. And again, I'll do that until I feel confident that I got it. And then once I do that, I'll put it back into the whole exercise and perform the exercise once more. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next example. 1H. My tempo was 132. Allegro ma non troppo. Allegro means fast, but not too fast. All right, here is each measure's elements. First, we always analyze before we sight read. This one does not have a pickup, starts on the beat, so we have a quarter and 2/8 notes in the first measure. Second measure, eighth rest eighth note and a quarter. Third measure is a half note, and the fourth measure is 2/8 notes and a quarter rest. So this one is pretty mixed up. It's got a lot of variety in it. That might be a little tricky. 2/8 notes, 2/8 notes. Next measure, we have an eighth rest eighth note, and then a quarter note. Here's a quarter and a quarter, and then here's a quarter note and a quarter rest. Also quite mixed up. There's no two measures that are the same. Now let's look over here. Quarter note and 2/8 notes. Ooh. Eighth rest eighth note, eighth rest eighth note, back to back. This is an interesting measure. We got to watch out for this one. Here is 2/8 notes and a quarter note. Eighth rest eighth note, eighth rest eighth note. 2/8 notes and 2/8 notes. Eighth rest eighth note, eighth rest eighth note. Oh, okay, they like to use this one a lot. This is going to be tricky. 2/8 notes, a quarter note, and then a half note. All right, I've got my metronome set to 132. All right, I may mess up on this one because it's got those tricky eighth rests, but let's try it. I'm going to conduct one beat before I start. Ta ti 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 ta ta ti 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 ta 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 ti 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 ta ti 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 ta ta. I did it. All right, in case you didn't do it, I might anticipate that you'd have problems with that second line there with all of those eighth rest eighth notes. So let's make a little drill out of that second line only. Okay, and we'll go slower. So ta ti 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 ta ti 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 ta ta. Do it again. Ta ti 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 ti. And you see I'm making the beat, and then on the rebound of that beat, that's my eighth note pulse, and that's when I say ti. So ti ti. All right, let me start that again. Ta ti ti ti. Ti 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 ta ti 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 ta ta. And the final element that we'll talk about today is the syncopation, which is an eighth note followed by a quarter note followed by another eighth note. And you'll notice that this particular pattern takes 2 whole beats, so it fills an entire measure of 2/4. And it's called the syncopation because you have this attack on the eighth note, and then another attack, which is more accented, on the upbeat. And then it hangs over the next beat, and then you have another attack on an eighth note. So that middle beat is more accented than the other 2 outer beats. And that's why we call it a syncopation. And so for that, we're going to use the syllables ti, ta, ti. So let's say I conduct and go ti, ta, ti. Okay, again. Ti, ta, ti. And one more time. Ti, ta, ti. All right, so that is our final rhythmic element for the week. Let's go and look at some exercises. Example 1J, which is where we start to get our first syncopations. This is 88 andante. Andante means like at a walking tempo. Looking at this, we have 2 eighth notes and a quarter note in measure 1. 2 eighth notes and a quarter note in measure 2. And a quarter note and 2 eighth notes now in measure 3. So they flipped it. Now I have a whole rest, which means really 2 beats of rest, the whole measure of rest here. And now here we have our first syncopation. So it fills the entire measure. I'll just say syncopation for this. 2 eighth notes and a quarter. A syncopation. A whole rest. Quarter note, 2 eighth notes. A syncopation. Quarter note, 2 eighth notes. Another whole rest. Syncopation, syncopation. Ooh, back to back sync. That's not going to be tricky. and then 2/8 notes and 2/8 notes, and then a whole rest. All right, let's perform this one. Here I go with my 88 beats. Okay. Ti ti ta, ti ti ta, ta ti ti. Ti ta, ti 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 ta, ti ta ti. Ta ti 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 ta, ti ta ti ti. Ti ta ti ti ta, ti 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 ti. All right, I did it as a sight read the first time. Again, sight read is always the first time we read it. We always go from the beginning all the way to the end without stopping in the sight read, even if we make a lot of mistakes. In this particular case, I didn't, which is the ideal goal of sight reading, but it takes time to get there, so we might have made a few mistakes along the way. I would anticipate that we make mistakes, let's say, when the syncopations first start to come in, like in measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and measure 5. So let's practice measure 5, 6, 7, and 8 on a loop. Here we go. Ti ta ti 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 ta, ti ta ti. Ti ta ti 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 ta, ti ta ti. Again. Ti ta ti 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 ta, ti ta ti. One last time. Ti ta ti 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 ta, ti ta ti. Okay, so now we've done that enough times that we feel good about it. We got that. Now let's go to the last 4 measures. There we have back-to-back syncopations. That's going to be tough. Let's try doing that a few times. Ti ta ti ti ta ti 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 ti. Ti ta ti ti ta ti 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 ti. Ti ta ti ti ta ti 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 ti. One more time. Ti ta ti ti ta ti 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 ti. Good. All right. So we smoothed out those problems, and now we go back and we do the whole thing, and we try to get the whole thing together with it. That may also take a few tries to get everything incorporated into the whole. So also do that a few times until it's ready to go. Okay.